Basically what it does is we heard a lot of testimony about how underpaid the employees doing this kind of work are, and I don't think there was any disagreement. However, it occurred to me that some of the language I thought in the bill could have been a little stronger to making sure that is clearly our intent. And we understand that there are high fixed costs in these nonprofits and other costs that they just don't have control over. But I thought a strong policy statement saying that we get that too, but we also get the fact that these are underpaid jobs, and we want to recognize that. So that's what the amendment does, number one. And then number two, we've had, some of us have been around where we've had real tough times, where, a recession, and where we had to really sharpen our pencil to make some tough cuts. And some policy statements that we had, this was around 2008 or so, some policy statements that we said during then were, while we have to make these real tough cuts, that the work that you all do, the work that human services do, we are preserving. That the work is so critical to protect our most vulnerable that in our budget deliberations, this is so critically important that we recognize we have to preserve, if not even enhance, the funding. So the other language of this amendment captures that, and I think it's read by saying that the critical role, we recognize the critical role that human services organizations fill, and it's our intent to fund annual adjustments in times of both economic prosperity and economic hardship. So that's what the amendment does, and I will formally move it consistent with what I just described. Councilmember Mosqueda's seconded. Any other comments on the amendment?
Take a comment, Mr. President.
Oh, Councilmember Mosqueda.
I just want to thank you, Mr. President, for bringing this amendment forward. I think it is a really smart idea to make sure that we express the council's strong desire that these annual adjustments are received by our provider organizations, and in dealing with the fixed and variable costs, as we create greater stability for the organizations, our desire is absolutely in line with what both the CEOs, the executive directors, and the frontline staff have said. We want to see wages stabilize, we want to see workers stabilize, and the turnover and vacancy rates addressed. So I really appreciate you underscoring that in the amendment. I also think it's important that we, through your amendment, underscore our commitment to investing in the critical role that these human service provider organizations, frontline staff, and their leaders provide to our city, and by fulfilling the city's intention to fund the annual adjustments in times of both economic prosperity and economic hardship, I think really recognizes that more people are going to need these various services, especially in times of economic hardship. Very much appreciate you bringing this forward and working with our office on this, and will be an enthusiastic yes on your amendment.
Thank you, Councilmember Mosqueda. Sort of like we have a few newlyweds here, sort of like those wedding vows, for better or for worse.